Hello, chaps and chapesses and dogs and cats and everyone else in between. Welcome to the Pro Synth Network live show, episode 264. We're going to be joined by some very special guests, a new one and an old one, and I mean that in the nicest possible way. But you'll see what I mean shortly. But before we get to there, and before I put the other foot in my mouth, let me just go through the usual gubbins with you. To make sure that you're singing off the same hymn sheet as the rest of us. If you haven't already, give us a like and a comment, subscribe and share. If you want to comment during the show, use the chat functions, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook or Twitch, which is where we're broadcasting live. All of those messages come through to us and we can respond and react to them as we see fit. And if you want to ask a question, stick a big capital Q in front of your comment, and that just helps us pick it out of the melee that happens in the chat room. And talking of the chat room, we have moderators in there. No Andy Brooks, because he's getting ready to do the Sheffield EMOM, and then there's an event happening in Bradford tomorrow, which we'll talk about later on in the show that he's going to, so he won't be around, but hopefully Ben from Musings and Andy Synth Addict will be around to keep you horrible lot in line, but they generally post links to the stuff that we're talking about, so if you want to check that out after the show, feel free. But as I said, questions, stick a big capital Q in the front, and that way we can see it. If you want to support the channel, which we love that you do, all of these people that show up, and you can send money to us to keep the channel going, basically by using the super chat or super stickers if you're watching on YouTube live, or you can hit the thanks button if you're watching after the event. But one of the best and most popular ways of supporting the channel is through the Patreon page, which is at that very address that you see there. And by subscribing to the Patreon page for as little as $2 per month, you get to support the channel, and also you get some cool stuff thrown in. For example, last week we had the wonderful Dom Morley. That was a really good show. Really enjoyed that one. Dom was promoting his new project management tool for studio musicians, recording engineers, producers, etc., called Multiband. And if you want 20% off your first year's subscription to Multiband, join up to the Pro Synth Network Patreon page, and you'll find a code there that brings the cost of that service down to a measly £3 a month, which is a bargain. You'll also get a whole bunch of free patches for instruments such as Cherry Audio's Octave Cat, and many other Cherry Audio instruments, as well as some hardware stuff. All the Synthspiration videos go up there, and they're all edited so that you don't have to wade through the show to find them, so you can find them all independently there with a bit of a description. We've got other patches for hardware synths like the Hydra Synth and the Cobalt 8 and so on and so forth. So lots of stuff that you can get in there for just a mere $2 a month. And of course, with the exchange rates being what they are, it gets cheaper for the British and the Europeans as well, because of stuff and financial things. But yeah, that's one really good way. The other good way of supporting us, because not only do you support the channel, but you also get to wear cool things, is by going to our merch store, which you can find at this address. And if you want to see what we have on offer at the merch store, here it is. We've got 3 new product lines. I'm wearing one right now. The Frankie Say range of stuff. We're doing this until they tell us not to, basically. Hopefully, I don't think anybody will mind us too much, seeing as the amount of replica Frankie Say merchandise that has been floating around the world for the last 40 years. I'm sure they won't mind us doing this. But if you want a Frankie Say Watch Pro Synth Network hoodie or t-shirt or a mug, they are all there available to buy. And look at that, I've forgotten to turn the 10% offer off. So do you know what? We put that on there for Easter. We're going to leave it on there for the weekend. So if you want to buy some merchandise, you can get 10% off, and we take a little bit off the top, which helps keep the channel going. There's a bikini for the summer. We will have some pictures of someone modeling one of those, because somebody bought one. We made it because they requested it. So there's the Pro Synth Network bikini, the candles, the bandanas, the posters, the coasters, the t-shirts, the cushions, the jackets, the phone cases, the stickers, and so much more besides. And of course, links to all of our shows there as well. So that's a really cool way of supporting us. And if you go to any synthesizer shows this year, do stick a ProSynth Network t-shirt on, because we love seeing those. I was absolutely blown away by the amount of PSN shirts I saw at Synth East this year. So I'm hoping that there's going to be a good representation at Superbooth in just over a week's time. So that'll be cool. You can also find us across all the social media channels, Facebook, YouTube, Blue Sky, Twitch, Instagram, and Threads, although we are most active on Facebook. So if you want to come and join the group and join in the chat during the week, we can do that there as well. So that's, I think, all of the housekeeping done. Before we come to our very special guest, let's go to Mr. Kent Spong, who's just brushing the pet hairs off of his lovely ProSynth Network t-shirt. How are you?
Okay.
Good.
I'm done for the day, thank you.
Jolly good. We've been watching you repair stuff today. You've done an MKS 70?
70 display, yeah.
What else have you been doing?
There was a CS20 briefly. There was a JD800.
Let me guess what the problem with that was.
Yeah, no, this is after it's been done.
Right.
They had additional issues, so that's been straightened up as well. So yes, it's all been very, as it were.
Jolly good.
So, and actually, I've got a meme here that I did a few years ago, but I think it's very appropriate for tonight's show, actually. So
go on then.
Well, I have to do it, do I? My end, I suppose. Let's have a look.
If you can.
If I can, if it will let me. It come up?
Yes, here we go.
Go on, you got it?
I've got it.
Good man.
Hang on a minute. That's because I've got to do this first, and then I can do that.
Missing. There you go.
Subtle. I do remember that one, though.
Yeah, it wasn't intentional. It was just that I was taking a picture of Nelly running down the garden, and I went, hang on a minute, what's this sticking out the side of the shed there? Yes.
Very good.
Lurking.
Very good. Excellent stuff. Well, good to see you, my friend. And also joining us, regular co-host, is Mr. Andrew Longhurst. Good evening, sir.
Sorry, I was just covering up my bikini.
Uh-huh.
So, hello all. Hello, Synthland. How are you doing out there, PSN? I'm good. It's kind of an odd week after a bank holiday, isn't it? And we've just kind of cruised into it. Got lots of stuff done, finished everything by mid-afternoon, and then I was sat twiddling my thumbs, wondering what to do the rest of this afternoon. And so I found a plugin that someone sent me, and I just kind of got lost in that. Some sort of plug. I don't know what it is. Don't know.
Well, we'll be talking about it in just a short while. I'm sure we are. Good to have you, though. And we might as well bring in our guest. First of all, let's bring in the old boy, the man who visits us regularly with his wares. You know him, we love him. His name is Dan Goldstein. Here he is. Welcome again. How are you doing?
I'm back again.
I know.
Wow. This must be my 200th appearance now.
I must go back and count them. Lots of appearances. How are you, sir?
I am good. It's been a long week, and there's no better way to end a long week than to come here with you gentlemen and talk about synthesizers.
Well, that's a compliment, and I'll take it. I will stick that on the posters. How are things in Cherry Audio? Obviously, it's a release week, so it's been very busy, I guess.
Yeah. There's a release of a product like this is the end of months and months and months of design and development work, and we get to live with these products for a long time, but the public doesn't. And when it comes out and we get to see people's reaction, it's a lovely thing.
Do you get
a lot
tired?
of fun. It's a great relief, and this particular release, this new instrument of ours, has been very, very well received, which is just like I say, a nice end to a long stretch of design and development work.
Does it get really kind of tiring that you are so deep into this project for such a long while that by the time you put it out there and we're all getting excited, you're probably glad to see the back of it for a while?
No, I wouldn't say that, but we are two instruments down the road.
Of course,
right now.
yes.
We have two other synthesizers in development, which
Wow.
you'll all get to see soon enough. But yeah, I mean, once we sort of get the instrument developed, then it goes into sound design and all the presets get made, and we're fixing bugs and doing last minute adjustments to the artwork and that sort of thing, and doing the promotion and writing the documentation and everything that goes into a release. So no, I would never say that we are happy to see the end of any of these projects. We get to play with synthesizers all day. It's as fun a job as you can possibly have. But but it is just, it's really, really nice when other people get to see what we're doing, because we can't talk about it, we can't show it to people. But it's just it's a great feeling.
Cool stuff. Excellent. Well, it's just always great to have you here. Thank you for coming along. Now, normally I would at this point switch to the legend that is Mitchell Sigmund, but as we found out on the last show, Mitchell has decided to put his feet up, and he's I actually saw a poster with him, and is that his partner? I'm not entirely sure.
That's his wife. Yes,
that's his wife. Yeah. So they're out gigging, which is great to see. And Mitchell looking rather cool in that picture, I must say. Hopefully he's watching. He might be watching from a distance, or might just be taking the afternoon off. But we have been asking for this guy to come on the show for us ever since he joined the company, because I've known of him for such a very long time, and we've kind of been Facebook friends for quite a while too. He's familiar with Kent as well, and he is responsible for I can't remember which was the first instrument. I'm sure we'll get that out of him in just a moment. But he's been responsible for a large number of recent Cherry Audio plugins from the visual design perspective. And now this one is kind of his first baby. Ladies and gentlemen, will you please give a warm ProSynth Network welcome to the one and the only Mal Meehan. Woo! In a ProSynth Network shirt, no less. We thank you.
I'm all merched up.
Oh, look at that. He's proper merched up.
Matching my...
Oh, look at that. Very well done. Mal, listen, mate, it's so good to have you on the show finally after all this time. Thank you ever so much. Where do we find you? I mean, obviously, we find you in a room with lots of synthesizers. Whereabouts in the world did we find you?
Oh, I'm in Delaware.
Oh, wow. Okay.
In the States, yeah.
You don't sound like a local.
No.
How long have you been out there?
Good question. 15 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it 15 years now? Wow.
Yeah.
So, you like synthesizers then, yeah?
Not really. No.
What's your history with synthesizers? Where did it all start for you?
I was very fortunate enough to have an older brother who was very encouraging. So, I would listen to all his music, and we would sit there and listen to Tangerine Dream and all the prog rock of the 70s.
Yeah.
And I started playing at the age of 11 in just using like old reed organs or, that sort of stuff. And then I was very fortunate that he wanted to encourage me, and he would bring home synths, and it was okay if I was in his room with him in the room. I could play the keyboards, but he would put like fishing wire across the stairs up to his bedroom.
No way.
So he would know that I'd gone up there if I hadn't, if he wasn't there, so, but he would come to all the school concerts. He was very encouraging. And that was really the start of my love for synthesizers. It was really, I'd go to the local library and I'd rent out the BBC Radiophonic Workshop albums and Jean-Jacques Perry albums and all that sort of stuff. So I just loved the quirky sounds. I didn't really understand how they came about. But for me, it was just a wonder, basically. Yeah.
What was the first synth you actually owned yourself?
First synth I owned was a Prodigy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Because you've got a thing about Moogs, haven't you, I think?
If you're into prog rock, then that's where the leaning is, right?
Yeah, of course.
My first synth I bought, my father said to me, whatever you make on your Christmas box doing your paper route, I'll double it, right? Okay. So I made £300.
Wow.
And he sat down. He was a bit shocked. This was in 1980, 82 maybe, or whatever it was. And we went down to the Gig Sounds, the local music store, and bought a Prodigy, and I had nothing to plug it into. So I would have to take it into school to play it.
Oh no!
But that really started that. Yeah.
Nice. And you've got a nice collection now. I mean, is this everything, or is there more behind the camera?
Well, there's the analog wall this side.
Oh, okay. There's a wall for the analog. Wow.
That's the digital side.
Okay. Is that a deliberate decision?
No, it's just that for the analog side, I don't need to program it so much. So
sure, yeah.
On this side, I like to see the displays. So that's
okay.
How it worked out, basically.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about a specific instrument that came out this week, of course. But I just want to get a little bit of background. I know the boss is sitting in the background bit, but how did you get involved with Cherry Audio? How did that all transpire?
Well, when I came to the States, I basically made the decision to sell my 40 analog keyboards.
Oh, wow.
Because, coming to New York, I knew that I didn't have Kent at hand. And I'm pretty sure he was happy that I sold all those.
Especially the memory moog.
Especially the memory moog. It's the funny story about the memory moog. The last time I saw Kent is I moved to Ireland, and we drove, got on the ferry at Holyhead, and I was in Galway, and unpacked the memory moog, and 4 voices worked. Right.
Yeah.
So I phoned up Kent, and he was like, "Well, I'll come bring it back." So I get back in the car, and we drive back on the ferry, and we get to Kent's house, and we put it on his bench, and we power it up, and 6 voice tunes.
Yeah.
No way.
And
That's memory moogs.
And it cost like a whole load of money to get, and time to do that. But yeah, I mean, now I'm not doing all the vintage stuff. I'm just doing the modern keyboards. But
okay.
But I got into the whole software side, and I'm a huge Arturia fan. Bought their collection from day one. But there was just some keyboards that were missing. And then suddenly I discovered Cherry, and they had a Quadra, and they had a memory moog, and I was like, that's it. That's perfect. That's me, right? So I buy these things, and they were fantastic, right? And I bought every plugin from Cherry after that, and they're featuring all my music, and that was really the thing, right? And then one day because obviously I was subscribed to the newsletter. One day I see it at the bottom of the newsletter, looking for a UI designer, like tiny text.
Really?
And I was like, oh, okay.
That's what you do, isn't it?
and the deadline for entries was the day that I saw it.
No way.
Yeah. So I wrote a letter into, and I didn't really, I mean, I'd seen Dan and Mitchell on various shows, but I didn't know anybody there. And I just wrote a kind of cheeky, email. Hey guys, am I too late to apply for this job? And I didn't think anything of it. And then sort of half an hour later, I think Dan wrote back and said, Mal, send us your stuff. And so I sent my stuff, and 45 minutes later, can you talk today? And I was like, sure, and
playing it cool.
And I think that was pretty good, because basically it didn't give me any time to get nervous or anything like
That's
that.
true.
So we had a very nice conversation, which was just purely synthesizers. It wasn't anything to do with the job. It was like an hour and 15 minutes conversation just about synths. And to my surprise, a few days later, I was working at Cherry. So
nice.
And it's been great ever since,
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Nice one. Well, listen, there's a little bit of background for everyone. Here we are. We're all here. And we're here today with Dan and Mal for one reason, and one reason only, and that is the launch of their brand new instrument. If you haven't heard about it yet, sit back and watch this. And there she is. It is, of course, the Yellowjacket, which is inspired by the EDP Wasp of yesteryear. I think about 1978, around that time. 78. Designed, of course, by Adrian Wagner and the legend that was, and still is, Chris Huggett, who is behind many great British synthesizer inventions right up until the Novation years, some of his last work. But this one, I think, this was the first of Chris's designs to make it, or certainly to make it to market. Anyway,
I mean, he wasn't a synth designer at that point.
No, he was just an electrical guy,
designer.
wasn't he? Yeah. And he and Adrian came up with this idea and got some money from Rod Argent. I don't know if it was directly from Rod himself, or certainly from Argent Keyboards on Denmark Street, which was, of course, the beating heart of the music technology industry right there in London. And I think it was about £10,000 at the time, which in 1978, I don't know what that equates to today, but quite a lot of money. And it's funny, since since this was announced, we've had people like Mel Wesson, who, great composer, sound designer, employee at Rod Argent's, regaling us with stories of him sleeping out the back of the store on a pile of Wasp boxes, as is his wont. So yeah, I mean, a fantastic little thing. I see now. I'm far too young to remember. No, I'm not really. I remember seeing this in music technology magazines and thinking, it's a bit plastic. It's got no proper keys on it. It doesn't even look like a cool synthesizer. It doesn't look like a Moog or a Yamaha or anything like that. And I kind of, stupidly, I guess, dismissed it out of hand. As we were saying before we came on air, it looked like a toy. It was a piece of black plastic with a yellow touch keyboard. But then I would look at the Synthy, the one that came in a little case with the touch keyboard. I would look at that in the same way as well. It didn't seem like a proper synthesizer, and yet under its hood is this very simple but powerful one PCB design that, when you plugged it into something, sounded absolutely glorious. If you used the built-in speaker, maybe not so much, but it all depends. I mean, some people recorded it by miking the speaker rather than going line into straight into the desk. Yeah. So let's first of all, why the Wasp? Why this one for this release? Dan, have you got a penchant for this? I know you've got one sitting there by your right elbow. Has this been a favourite of yours and one that you've been wanting to do for some time?
The filter of the Wasp is just so legendary. And we've been doing a lot of interesting filters lately, like we did the Atomica, the Soviet filter that's just so unique. And I have always wanted to try to replicate the Wasp filter. But I've also been a little bit intimidated by it because it's just it's a beautiful filter. It's a grungy, distorted filter. There's a lot to it. And so what happened was last November, there was a day in November here in the United States that for some of us was not a great day. And the next day I thought, well, I need something to focus my attention on and take my mind off of things. And I pulled out the Wasp and I started studying it and I started working on it. And after a while, I figured out all the secrets of the Wasp's filter, and I felt really good about that. And I thought, the Wasp is a relatively simple musical instrument. Maybe this would be a good project to see what Mel can do, as his first design project for Cherry Audio. And so I approached Mal with this, and I was surprised to learn that Mal had quite an interesting history of his own with the Wasp. And he knew it very, very well and was a fan of it. And so we just let him run with the design, and I'm so glad we did, because he really, really, really impressed all of us with what he came up with. And he just took the Wasp itself, which is a cool synth, and just took it in a lot of great new directions. And among other things, designed the coolest arpeggiator of any Cherry Audio synth that we've ever done. And yeah, it just kind of fell into place. It was sort of meant to be.
Yeah, I was going to say, because Mal, you were saying earlier about this kind of serendipitous moment where you saw the email address at the very bottom, and it's tiny little print, but you phoned up or emailed and got the job. Did this feel like this just fell into your lap, and it was the perfect way to start, your era within the company in terms of design?
I mean, yeah, I mean, a British guy working for an American company doing a British synth. I mean, that seems logical.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a very good background with the Wasp. I had my brother's Wasp, and then I used to go to this youth club in Tulse Hill, and they had a Wasp and a Gnat and a Spider.
Mm-hmm.
So we would just plug them all up and just go crazy with it. I mean, we were young, and what you have to imagine about the Wasp, really, for me, if you cast your mind back to it, it was achievable for people to buy this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't take very long before the price came down, so you could even get it cheaper because they didn't really last very long. They pretty much all failed, and and EDP would just swap them out rather than trying to fix them. So so for me, it was a great opportunity. And one thing that I really loved about the Wasp was the this is before MIDI. This was 5 years before MIDI, and to some extent, the EDP Link system is still a better system than MIDI, because you have a system that basically each synth will talk to each other on their own. You don't have to tell what synth is which synth. Plus, the single cable is bi-directional.
Right.
It just was an amazing thing, and of course, when they brought the Caterpillar keyboard out, which had a real, mechanical keyboard, and you could plug 4 Wasps or Gnats into it, you basically had a nice polyphonic synth.
Yeah.
And sadly, the Junos of the day came out and killed that idea, because you could buy, buying 4 Wasps was £800. So it was a lot of money. But so that was really the basis of my design decision. What was really interesting about the Wasp, and how can we put that into the One UI? And that was really the challenge.
Yeah. And you did a pretty good job, I'd say.
Yeah. I mean, what I didn't want to do was have 4-layer system.
Mm-hmm.
I really just wanted to have it concentrate on one Wasp, but also have a little sort of essence of 3 other Wasps. So that's where you have the trim controls.
Right.
And they're just very simple, logical things that you would want to change on a synth just to be, to change the sound.
Yeah.
So things like, altering the pitch, so you can make things sound aged. Or you can do creative effects like pitching them. So, if you use the unison, if you put it in unison and multi-unison, and you change all the pitches of the trims, you end up being able to play chords. And so what basically happened was all these little ideas came together, and the sum of the parts, made what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always wondered when it comes to synth design, particularly when you're doing a synthesizer that has already existed in a hardware form. There are some designers or some companies that will design the synths to look almost identical in every single way. I'm thinking, if you look at most of the Roland Cloud stuff, when you load them up, they look pretty much the same as the original things, with just 1 or 2 little tweaks. With you guys, because you add so much more to it and you go beyond the capabilities of the original, what's the very first image that you kind of draw up, whether it's on paper or on a screen? Do you start with the original and say, right, I'm going to move this and put this here? And how does that process start? Or do you have something in mind already as to where this is going to, or what it's going to look like from the outset?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of everything, really. Obviously Roland's going to design their synths because they're the manufacturers, so they're going to design them accurately. But for us, you have an idea when you pick up a synth. What are the qualities and characteristics of that synth, and what are the features that could be augmented? So that's how I start. And I also start in a sense that, as a musician, what do I want to be able to do with this synth? You know, so you know, I like to think as a musician first and work backwards as a designer, because that will basically whatever I want to do, the features will come into the UI. But on something like the Wasp, I did actually start laying out the original Wasp.
Okay.
You know, so all the controls were laid out. That's what we have. That's where we start. That's the foundation. And then you think, well, okay, let's see what we can do with the oscillators, because they were very simple. You know, what can we do with the filter? You know, can we add more modulations in the filter section? You know, the envelopes on the Wasp are really unique. But they had their flaws. You know, so how can we keep the original character of those repeatable envelopes, but make it easier for the end user to operate and give it more features? So on the envelopes, for instance, with the repeat and the original Wasp, you know, the attack and the decay controls the speed of the repeat. And the problem with that is that you have to basically have the attack at almost zero to get anything that's kind of like fast and modern, which means that your shape, your envelope repeat shape, tends to always be a gate, basically. So, you know, my first reaction to that was, well, I want something that's more a ramp or a triangle. So let's take the speed out and put that on a separate control. Okay. And so you just start to think of these things logically. You know,
that's really. I've always kind of wondered where the starting point is. You know, do you start with the original and then blow it up and move things around, or whether you maybe just think, well, I've got the idea, I've got the concept of the instrument in my head. Let's start with a fresh sheet. Before we've got some questions, and if anybody does have any questions, please do throw them into the chat. Put a big Q in front of them so I can see them. I want to go to Kent, the person, not the county, because look, you know, everybody knows that the Wasp and lots of what EDP made was. I wouldn't say cheap and cheerful, but it was built to a budget. It wasn't the most robust equipment in the world. You know, the molded plastic cases. You know, I actually I changed the batteries on a Wasp at Synth East because there was somebody displaying and they didn't have a screwdriver to open the case, so they sent it to me, and I just remember holding it, and I've held one or two, but it just felt so horribly feeble, you know, but I suppose that's part of the character. Do you get, I mean, you know, Mal alluded there to the fact that back in the day when these things started to go wrong, EDP didn't fix them, they just kind of swapped them out. How much work is involved in repairing a Wasp? What are the common things that you find if and when you get them in? Would it be, I would assume it would be something to do with the keyboard mechanism, or, you know, the mechanism is probably an elaborate word. Or do other things go more rapidly?
Well, weirdly enough, the thing that I used to see with Wasps when they came in would be either the filter packed up or a VCO wasn't running. That kind of thing.
Okay.
The thing is, though, although it was plastic case and it's just one circuit board.
Yeah.
So the keyboard and all the controls and all the components are all on one board. The way it's mounted inside the case, it is quite rigid.
Okay.
And I know there was a consensus, wasn't there? That, I mean, although I think don't quote me on this, but I think when it launched, it was 169 quid for a Wasp, and about 130 for the Spider, if I remember rightly. But everything, all the other synthesizers on the market at the time were miles more expensive. There was next to nothing that you could have, right? This thing came out and suddenly it was in people's hands. And although there was a lot of contention with people saying, well, you know, you get what you pay for kind of scenario, where it feels cheap because it's all plastic, and if you do this, it goes all this sort of business, right? And the board isn't actually physically mounted; it just sits there, and the knobs are the thing that holds the board in.
Right. Yes.
The knobs on the pots, so you can move things around. You know, that kind of thing. But they did the Wasp Deluxe,
Yeah.
which was lovely. Hang on a sec. Yeah,
Bless you.
get out and walk. A lovely wood case and everything with a lovely mechanical keyboard and all the rest of it, and it really didn't sell well because they'd made it sort of like ooh, look at this. It's like the kind of Prodigy kind of design sort of thing. It meant it was more expensive, and people go, no. So it backfired. But like I say, the filter. I mean, my mind is ruined, but I think the filter was based on the LM 3900. I believe.
It's not. It's 4069 inverter.
Oh, right. Okay. Right. Okay. But there is an LM in there somewhere, isn't there? If memory serves, somewhere around. There's an LM.
There's the 3080s.
Oh, yeah, the 3080s. Right, the CA 3080s. Yeah, get one of them go. Of course, these days, getting a 3080 is a little difficult to get hold of.
Yes.
And will cost you a few pennies. Yeah. So, but it was normally around those sort of areas that have problems.
Oh, okay.
Where, somebody'd accidentally plugged a viciously wrong power supply into it.
Right.
It'd be a lot of bangs and pops and stuff like that. But other than that, it was 3.5 power supply.
Oh, okay.
One of those little bubbies.
Yes.
So, and then people accidentally try to pump, 15 volt into it or something like that. And it's like, it's sort of like glow and then go quiet again,
That's it. Yeah. No, there is. It is a unique instrument, Andrew. Back in the day, because you're probably far older than the rest of us here.
Very old. Very old.
Any fond memories of using these things back in the day? And of course, thank you for being the one that's probably used the Cherry Audio plugin the most in the last few days. So tell us, have you got any comparisons that you can make to the original from the new one?
So to be honest, no, none at all. I'm with you, Robbie. When this came out, I'd already bought the Transcendent 2000, so I built something that was mechanical keyboard, a decent case, etc. And then I started hiring synths very soon after. So I was kind of always aspiring to Wakeman-esqueness and Emerson-ness, but never quite achieved that. In other words, I can't play very well. But so and when I saw it, I think what did for it was the keyboard, because it wasn't a real keyboard, it was a real keyboard, but it was a capacitive keyboard. It didn't work for me. I wanted a proper keyboard. So I just kind of glossed over it and I never really gave it a look at. So then this thing comes out, and I've got a couple of questions for you, Mal. When this came out, and I've been playing with this for a week or so now, and I've been utterly entranced. If this had come out like this back in the day, I'd have bought this in a heartbeat. And with a keyboard, I'd have bought it in a heartbeat because it sounds astonishing. It sounds astonishing. So the question I've got for you, Mal, is the way you've evoked the other, having three more wasps down at the bottom there. That would only have been done by someone that used more than one at a time, that actually used that interface. It's genius. I love it. Had you thought about doing any kind of pitch drift on those so that each one would randomly drift, or is it just as it is? What you get is what you get. Because I think it's a genius thing to do. What was your thinking with bringing it in as it is?
Well, the one thing about the Wasp, it's all digital oscillators, so they probably wouldn't drift very much. So, really, the idea was to try and create something that had more of an alive sound. I have a lot of VSTs and they're all great, but some of them sound more analog than others. And so the idea for me really was, how can we make this sound more alive? Because in all the keyboards I like to play, I like it wonky. I like all my analog wonky. It's as soon, I had a Matrix 12, right? Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. Hated it. because it just sounded like my Alesis QS 6.1. And so that was really, for me, that was the sort of genesis of those four things, those, the four voices. How can we make this thing come alive?
And I wasn't even aware that I'm supposed to know about this shit, right? And I wasn't aware it was digital. But of course, Chris Huggett.
It's DCOs. It's a very, very early use of a digitally controlled oscillator. So the tuning does not drift on the hardware, and it does not drift on the software. Although the filter tuning and the envelope times do drift in the software because those are true analog.
Okay, the other question I did have was when you go into the unison mode or whatever, where you are using these additional synths, is it doing it so that you're using it essentially will create four voice synths, four voices of unison polyphony, as it were, or is it 4 times 16? What's the story there? I haven't quite worked that out yet.
So, I mean, you can basically set the polyphony as you wish. So it will lock to 4 or 8 or 16 notes. So you can't have 4 times 16 notes. And it basically, depending on the mode you're in, it will. That's how it divides the voice.
The voice is up.
Yeah. So for instance, polyphonic, and this is directly from the Caterpillar keyboard. So this is not something that was made up. This is exactly how the Caterpillar worked. You basically can set in poly mode. So if you play monophonically, and not in legato, but if you lift the keys up and you play monophonically, it will always play your notes on the one first wasp. If you put it to cycle, it will cycle each alternative note through each alternative wasp. And that's how it's built here. And that really adds some very interesting. The cycle mode is really great because within the arpeggiator you can do all sorts of fun things with it, and that's what allows you to spread the stereo effects. So as you're playing, you're getting notes coming from different speakers.
And also, and I guess with the arpeggiator, we need to come back to that as well, because that's got a whole bunch of features on it. The humanize, swing. I love arpeggiators that allow you to swing. It's really quite brilliant. So with all of these things, you've also got the repeat thing set up properly working. So it's not just dependent on attack decay. You've got preset in there. Not preset, a separate knob for speed. This means that this whole machine is set up to do lots of polyrhythmic stuff. That's before you invoke the arpeggiator. Then you invoke the arpeggiator and do more. Right. Then you do the tuning on the other 3 things in cycle mode. That's before you get to the delays and all the other stuff. I mean, it's really quite mind-blowingly, brilliantly complex and wonderful and simple all at the same time. I just think it's genius. I really do.
You basically have 3 with the filter and the retrigger mode on the filter. You basically have an envelope generator, a repeatable envelope generator in that. Then you have the VCA envelope generator, and then you have the filter envelope generator. So you can have 3 things ping-ponging around before you've even got into the delay.
Yeah. And then you put it into cycle and you do the same thing again. You can get some really, really deeply weird and wonderful textures coming out of this. You can. Yeah. You can. And I've got to blame you for losing an awful lot of this week to it.
So talking about the arpeggiator, but that was really once we got that aspect of it working. So what tends to happen is the sound engine is developed first, and then the effects are developed on, secondly. And so, when I was playing it before we had the effects in, I was setting up all these great delay lines just using, the envelopes and the LFO, right? And that's really what got me going with the arpeggiator, because what I wanted to do was try and create something that was almost like a sequencer, but not a sequencer. And so the idea of having the probability, the chance, really came into effect. Yeah. Because it's a very simple thing. It just emits random notes from the arpeggiator. So it's not not rocket science, but what it does, and try it. You basically in your DAW stick 4 channels of the same chords, and set up the arpeggiator on each one, and then change the chants and the swing and the humanize, and suddenly you've got this thing that's auto-generating its own music.
You have.
Yeah,
You
definitely.
have.
I want to ask about the keyboard, because obviously on the original it was a capacitive keyboard, which I guess, I mean, it did kind of feel a little bit futuristic. Here were keys that didn't move. You touched them and sound came out. What I like of what you've done, first of all, you've kept the keyboard there. You've also made it so that you can play it off a touchscreen surface. Now, forgive me if I've missed this on previous Cherry Audio products. Is that a first for a Cherry Audio instrument, Dan, to have a plugin that will work on something like a Windows Surface Pro, that you can actually play the keys on the keyboard? Or have I missed something there?
They've all been able to do that, but I think what's new is that you can. We now support, with the keyboard, we support multi-touch. So on this, you can, if you have like most Windows, for example, most Windows touchscreens can support up to, I think, as many as 8 different fingers at a time. Okay. So you can actually full screen this instrument. It's the first time we've had an instrument where you can hit the maximize button and full screen it on a Windows computer, and then play with all your fingers, sliding across the notes exactly like you would on the hardware, except you can do it polyphonically. And that's so much fun that Mal really took that on-screen keyboard and optimized it to be played that way, where as you run your finger up and down a key, you are creating poly aftertouch. You can also do that with your mouse just by clicking on any of those keys and moving up and down. The poly control and the ability to set the keyboard to different scales and different keys is really, really cool. If you are playing it on a touchscreen, it's amazing.
Yeah, it seemed like a really cool. I mean, I don't have a Windows Surface that I can try this out on, but I was just thinking that would be a really cool thing. I'm not massively into iPad instruments, or sorry, I say touchscreen instruments, because the only reason I said iPad is there's lots of people in the chat saying, "Oh, are we going to get ports to iPad now?" But we've asked you that question before, so we shan't ask you again, unless of course you have news of anything.
I don't have news, but I will say that of all the instruments we've done, this is the one that would most be perfect on a tablet or a touchscreen or something like that. So it's worth considering for sure.
But it inherently lends itself to that. The original instrument, it just kind of made sense. I thought, clever idea. Somebody's thought about that, clearly. Let's go to our audience who have been throwing questions in the chat like Billy-O. First of all, I just need to recognise the wonderful Steve, who was is he still in the country? I think he might be.
Yeah, he is. His daughter's wedding.
Yeah,
this weekend.
And you had dinner with him, didn't you?
Last Sunday, him and his wife Enza. That was fantastic.
Yeah,
and a good chat and a bit of a tinkle back here as well, which was great.
Go. Fantastic. Well, thank you ever so much for your donation, Steve. As always, it is greatly and deeply appreciated. We do have a question that also came with some cash involved, but we don't take cash for questions. They are completely free. But Wagyu has sent us 10 of his Swiss chuffs. He wants to know what's Mal's take on updating all the Cherry synths to have MPE support, given the beautiful Osmos and Keyboard 4 that are sat next to you. Any plans for MPE support?
Well, I mean, some of our instruments do have MPE support.
Quite a few of them.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm going forward. I would probably always try and put some poly AT at the bare minimum onto synth. I mean, I have
always always a consideration. Yeah,
I have 6 controllers here that have.
Wow.
So, I'm very much into playing poly AT. So
nice. Good stuff.
Not so much MPE, but poly AT.
Yeah, I think MPE is the thing that people's, particularly Wagyu and Steve Elbows in the chat, are very, very keen to see on these things. Let's see who we got. We've got loads here from Nick, who always throws in. I will come to some of yours in a moment, Nick. This one's a good one because it kind of I was going to ask a question about this because as a fan of the Wasp Filter module, does the software version emulate all of its quirks? I'm assuming it probably does. And my second question to that is, given that you did the filter from Atomica separately, and given that you really like the Wasp filter, or the filter, sorry, on the Yellowjacket, are there plans to release the filter as its own separate plugin? Who wants to take that one?
I'll take those questions.
Cool.
As far as emulating its quirks, if it didn't emulate its quirks, it wouldn't be a Wasp filter. That is. Well, I'll say this much: when I started this project, I thought the filter was the heart. I thought it was everything that was quirky about the Wasp, and I'm very proud of this filter because right down to every little harmonic that comes out of that filter, you will get identically out of the Cherry Audio filter. There's a lot of work, and I think as it's just spot on. But the Wasp itself, it turns out, has a lot of quirks. There's a lot of just weird little stuff for such a simple instrument. And in some ways, thanks to Mal's experience with these, he knows them so well. He was even able to point out some of the quirky behavior that I hadn't noticed the first time around. So we put everything into this. It is. If you put it in mono mode and you turn off the effects, it's going to respond just like the hardware, down to the dual glide circuits. Each oscillator has its own glide circuit, and so when you glide from one note to another, the timing of them is different. The filter cutoff, for whatever reason, the filter always tracks the keyboard, but if you play a low note and go to a high note, or vice versa, there's a little bit of glide. The filter doesn't instantly switch from one cutoff to another; it sort of glides. And then some really interesting behavior with the glide that I can talk about if you want. But yeah, I mean, that's what we do. We spend many hours studying every little glitchy behavior of the instrument and putting that into the software.
Yeah. That question, by the way, from Andy Synchrotron, who has a great stream every morning at 10 o'clock on Saturdays, 10 o'clock UK time. So if you want to join him tomorrow morning at 10, I'm sure he'll appreciate you popping in. Thank you for that question there. Let's see, what else have we got here? Aquatic Borealis wants to know, can you change the colour of the Yellowjacket UI? It's quite bright. I mean,
a Wasp is quite bright too.
Yeah, but it's an idea. If it's, I don't know.
I mean, the thing, like some synths design themselves. If you take a Jupiter 8, the most beautiful looking synth there is, it's a Jupiter 8, right?
Yes.
You wouldn't want to change those orange headers to green or something, right? And that's part of the, it's in the name, Yellowjacket.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the problem with yellow is if you turn yellow down, you don't really have a very huge amount of range before it becomes, mid-gray. So,
yeah, that's very true. Very true. Not so much of a question, but Amanda Chowdhury wants to say hi to the Cherry Audio friends live. There you go. Performed that task.
Hi, Amanda. We love your videos.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing such a great video on Yellowjacket.
Amanda always does a video, and it comes out literally as soon as the instrument does, and it's a nice little demo and an instructional thing to get you going. So welcome, and we're going to get Amanda on the show soon. We are working and we are talking.
Nice.
So yeah, she's a great individual to have on. Right. Yeah. Let's see. Let's recognise Sean Johnson Music. Yellowjacket seems to be a great instrument for people doing live performance stuff. Great effects panel. So thank you for your donation and for that lovely comment. He had to get this in, didn't he? A Cherry plugin that is designed for full multi-touch support and full screen layout. Dare I hope? I think he's thinking, because Mike does love his iPad instruments, so I'm sure he's wishing and keeping his fingers crossed. But thank you very much for your donation, Mike. Looking forward to seeing you in about 10 days' time, and for dinner as well, no less. We've got another one here. Oh, is that the same one? Oh, it's the same one. There we go. So we get rid of those, otherwise I get confused. Actually, Half God, Half Beast had a question here that, is a pertinent one. Will we get a Wasp filter in voltage modular? That's a good question.
Anything can happen. It's just a matter of what we have time for. We do have some pretty intense projects going on, and of course, a lot of this has been new for Mel. So it's not on our roadmap at the moment, but
okay.
You never know.
Yeah, you never know indeed. Kosh Takai wants to know, will the multi-touch feature that you talked about, will that be added to stuff that you've already done or moving forward?
I don't know. I mean, most of our on-screen keyboard products, we've never really had customers ask for multi-touch. We certainly could add it at any time, but it was technology that we had to develop specifically for the Yellowjacket project. Again, the Yellowjacket it lends itself so strongly to playing on a touch screen, because playing on a touch screen is the same experience as playing the original instrument. It's not a picture of a keyboard. It's the exact same kind of interface. So we really wanted to push that as far as we could on this one.
Cool stuff. Right. Nick wants to know, have you contacted Nick Rhodes of Duran Duran, given he was one of the most famous Wasp users?
I have not.
No.
Robert, or if you're in the chat, maybe that would be a fun email to send out.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely. Get his endorsement. That would be fantastic. So, yeah, let's see what else have we got in here. We've asked Amanda's one. Actually, Amanda says, I did find the sync sweep a little challenging. Is it possible to have separate pitch modulation of oscillator 1 and oscillator 2 besides poly aftertouch?
Mel, why don't you take that?
I mean, I watched Amanda's video. The sync has to be, you have to have different pitches on each oscillator, and ideally you need different waveforms. So if you don't have the setup right, the sync doesn't sound like the kind of classic sync that you get on a ARP Odyssey or a Prodigy, for instance. But you can get it, and of course you can MIDI map the pitch to your mod wheel or to even a different source. So yeah, within the hardware, it doesn't allow you to use an envelope to control the sync, but it's still just a fun feature. I mean, I always loved the Prodigy and the sync on the Prodigy because the mod wheel, you could do it manually. So it was like a manual wah,
Yeah.
So, and of course sometimes there has to be a limit to what you're designing. And so, we wanted to keep it a simple synth. I wanted to keep it a simple synth. So some things we're not going to be designed in.
Yeah, sure.
And that's the truth of it. The challenge with every instrument we do is every instrument can't do every feature. If you want an instrument that lets you route the envelope to sync, use our P10. It's the best, the Prophet, that's the classic Prophet sound. But if we try to make every product do everything, then they all just sort of become bloated and overly complex. So we do have to make choices like that. But being able to control the pitch of oscillator 2 with aftertouch in order to create dynamic sweeping sounds is really, really fun. And that's even better to me.
I think one of the really interesting things about this, when it came out, it was a cheap synthesizer and it had its limits, but not when you actually dig into it, not that many. And we all know that working within a constrained system makes you more creative. There are already synths, as everyone said, there are already synths that have full sync capability. The fact that you have to work harder at this means you have to think about it a different way and be more creative in the way you're trying to invoke that particular function. It's locking sync together or getting it to do that sync sound. I think this works really well, and I think it represents very much the ethos of the original instrument, and I have to say I think it works really well because of it.
I mean, one has to remember that the actual original Wasp didn't have hard oscillator sync, so that's a function that we added just to give it a variation.
Yeah.
But it's a good function, and it's the way probably they would have done it.
Yeah.
But if they had, that would have been how they'd have done it. Just make it simple, keep it sweet, keep it simple.
Talking of the original, Half God, Half Beast had a question for you techie people here. Was the Wasp the one that abused a CMOS gate chip as a makeshift op-amp in the filter?
Yeah, it's not a gate chip, it's an inverter chip. And when you say abuse, I suppose it is abuse, but it's actually a really, really beautiful filter. That's one of the surprising things about the Wasp filter is it's a really nice, beautiful filter until you turn the resonance up enough. And I think what happens is when the resonance gets loud enough, it starts using more voltage than the instrument has. And so it starts, kind of clipping and introducing all these harmonics. And as you continue to turn the Q knob up, there are more and more harmonics that get introduced. And the end result is really musical. It's not distortion in an ugly sense. It's a really sort of cool musical sound. I've always loved it. I've always loved that filter.
Yeah. According to Rob Jackson Music, Gerard Casal from Devo said, if you got sweat on the Wasp, it would play itself. Are you going to add a sweaty mode?
It took a lot of sweat.
It's a little known feature, but if you do have a touch screen and you lick it, it'll keep playing.
I would say it took a lot of sweat to build this thing. So.
I must admit, I do lick my my Slate Raven quite a bit. So
is that just because you spilled something on it, or
no? I just love my Slate Raven.
Dear, oh dear.
So this will work on the Slate Raven. Should do, shouldn't it?
Well, so here's the thing. Like, my background is in museum design, and I've spent 30 plus years creating touchscreen kiosks, and actually I'm looking at 2 Slate Ravens right here.
Good man.
So it would be lovely, but the problem with the Mac is that it doesn't, internally support multi-touch. So
yeah,
but Windows does.
Windows does, so it works perfectly on the Windows.
There you go. Icing the Body Electric, he says, is that a Jasper Wasp remake behind Dan to his right? If so, what's his opinion of it? And did it inform the design of the plugin in any way?
Yeah, it is that's a Jasper. My opinion of it is the identical circuitry to the original Wasp, but you can get it. Most of the original Wasps have fallen apart because the build quality of them was somewhat suspect. So it works and sounds exactly the same, except they made a few small enhancements to it, which I would say did inform our design. Like, you will find what they call the enhanced waveform, which is from the NAT, right, Mel?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. So we love that choice, and Mal had access to a NAT when he was young, and so we've put those same waveforms into Yellowjacket. But of course, there are a couple minor improvements on the Jasper, and our software is just taken it so much further in so many ways.
Yeah. What is the enhanced waveform?
It's basically a pulse width modulated. It's a pulse width waveform that has its own little dedicated LFO, so it just goes completely separate from any other LFO. And on oscillator 1 and oscillator 2, they're inverted. So when one is going thin, the other is going fat. And so if you turn them both on, you get this really kind of rich, full sound.
Cool.
Interesting. One more question before we move on to a few news topics from the week, and then that gives our audience a chance to think up of any more questions to throw at our esteemed guests. And this one will lead somewhat nicely, a nice little segue into our first news topic. But have you ever discussed the concept of porting your software synths into or onto a hardware platform? Is that something you've ever considered? Because Roland, Arturia do that sort of thing, and you've got some really cool things that you could look good.
Yeah, we're always open to anything. Right now is probably the most challenging time to make hardware that there's been in decades, because the price of components, at least in this country, is sky high. But we are not hardware experts ourselves, but we'd always be open to working with a hardware partner if the opportunity came along, and who knows, maybe it will.
Cool stuff. That's a nice answer, which I said as it leads us into our first kind of major piece of news this week. And I completely appreciate this company is a competitor playing in the same space. So if you wish to kind of excuse yourselves or recuse yourselves from any comments here, feel free, guys. But we do have to cover it because it is quite a big thing in the world of software instruments. That is the release of Arturia's V Collection 11. So it's been just over a year, I think, since V Collection 10. Now we have 11. I think 9 and 10 sort of got a muted response from customers, because I think they were expecting more to be in there. They've certainly made up for it with V Collection 11, because there are brand new instruments. There are big updates to other parts of the collection as well. And we now have 45 instruments in the collection, and they range from all of the old classics to some really cool new ones. And the two that really stand out, first of all, is the Dupe 8000V, which is their recreation of the Roland JP 8000 and 8080. And then there's also the pure lo-fi instrument, which is jumping on that whole lo-fi bandwagon that seems to be a thing at the moment, that it just produces nice, lovely, sort of dusty, crunchy little sounds. It's very, very nice indeed. What else is new? To the collection, Synth V and Mini Brute V have been added. Of course, we've had those as individual instruments. The augmented Yangtze, which is one of my favourite augmented instruments from them, along with the full version of augmented mallets, which was only available as a kind of 50 preset freebie that came out a limited time over Christmas. They're now full blown and in there, and all the augmented instruments have been augmented, shall we say, by a brand new UI design, which I think is a lot cleaner and a lot easier to get on with. So that all 7 of those are now part of the V collection. And then there's a brand new SEM, which they tell me has been rebuilt from the ground up to feature a lot of the new standard features that Arturia put into their instruments. So there's the augmented updates as well, and Mini Freak V3 is now supported in there as well, I believe. It's a blisteringly good package. The price has gone up. I think the full price for this is €699. You can get it on offer depending on what you've got in your collection. Arturia will give you a unique offer. But what they've also done is if you can't afford the full collection but want to get into it, you can do that through V Collection Intro, which gives you a limited number of instruments. So there you go. You get 10 instruments, in total over 2,500 sounds, and will work in an analog lab, and it's only $199. And of course, that will be reduced if you own some Arturia gear already. So yeah, it's out, it's there. But I think the one that I'm certain, well, the one that really got me, as I say, moist about the gusset was this one. in your face or what. That is the Dupe 8000, which I just thought was absolutely brilliant. I just love it. I remember going to the launch of that in, I think it was 97 or 98. And so it makes me feel very old now that it's included in the V collection, because you kind of think that most of those instruments are of a certain vintage. Thoughts on the V collection? I mean, it is an astounding collection of instruments. Mal, you said at the top of the show that you sort of dove in and got the V collection back when, and is it still something that is a key feature in your music and your studio?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love Arturia stuff. I have, there's 5 Arturia keyboards in the studio, and I remember buying their first plugins when they came in a box with a beautiful printed manual and a CD-ROM. So I mean, I upgraded yesterday, downloaded it last night. I mean, it's a great staple. I love Arturia products. Yeah,
it's a very good one. I mean, Dan, I know that Arturia, you're up there with them as far as I'm concerned with the range and the quality of your instruments. It goes head to head with those, and I'm not blowing smoke up the proverbial. I genuinely believe that what you provide is as good as these people. Do you look up to a company like Arturia, who've been around in this game for such a long time and do arguably some of the best instruments out there? Do you look up to them and admire what they're doing with this stuff?
Oh yeah, we have endless respect for them. And I think we've addressed this before on the show. When you say that we're competitors, I mean, we're competing in the same space, but we're friendly with them. Whenever we have a new instrument that comes out, we send it to them. They always send us their new V collections. Nice. I think it's what you would call a mutual admiration society.
That's nice to hear.
And as far as the JP8000 goes, I was watching demos of that this morning. It sounds really, really great, and I'm a little jealous because we get people hoping, we often get messages from people hoping that we'll do a JP8000. I've owned a couple JP8000s and a JP8080 rack. It's a great choice for an instrument. I would have loved to have done it myself, and who knows, maybe we will someday, but from what I heard, they nailed it. They got it right, and very good choice.
Yeah, the 8000 and the 8080 are kind of seminal instruments. As soon as I fired that up, I think the first patch, because I got a version that wasn't complete, and so there was only a limited number of patches, and I don't know if it was a deliberate choice, or whether it was alphabetical, but it's called Ascension Melody, and you just press the one key, and you just sit there and go, there you go, there's my trance track. You can literally take that, and as you put aftertouch pressure on, it opens up the filter. I mean, it's just a banging patch in its own right. But you've got all of those, there's 4 arpeggiator lanes, sequencers, all of the ton of effects in there. It's just an incredible thing.
The super saw waveform,
and of course the super saw.
There's a lot of cool. There's some serious innovation in that. In the JP8000, and it really, as an early VA synth, it really sort of took everyone back to analog and is responsible in a lot of ways for where we are today, I think.
Exactly. I mean, it was that kind of period. We had the Nord lead, then the AM1X, and then the JP8000, which it followed about a year after, I think, the Yamaha one. But that was the dawning of a new age. I think it was that time when we had, for a number of years, just been seduced by the sleek button small screen synthesizers that were digital, never went out of tune, had loads of amazing sounds in there, but we missed the tactility. We missed the fact that we could grab hold of things and change stuff without stepping through menus. And so the manufacturers kind of finally cottoned onto this, and when the technology allowed them to recreate the internals as closely as they could back then anyway, and then throw a bunch of like knobber functions and buttons and everything, it's just like it was that moment where it did all change, and this is kind of where we are now. Andrew, Ken, I don't know if you've got this, managed to get hold of this. Have you got any thoughts on V Collection 11 as a suite, or do any of those instruments reach out and grab you? I know, Kent, you always go, "Ooh, that's nice," when I'm playing stuff from the augmented things.
Yeah, this is true. However, at the moment, I think because I'm still on 9, if I remember rightly.
Okay.
It's just that I've got a certain Mustang that's asking for large quantities of money off me at the moment, and I was a little taken back by how much it was to upgrade from 9 to 11. So, yes, I will. Will I do it soon? No. Not yet. Not yet.
Simple answer.
Yeah.
Andy, how about you?
I admire what Arturia have done with their library, and I occasionally buy one or two of their things. I always, and I think they do a fantastic job with them. But my take on it is they're more for people that want to use the presets and dial it up and just want it to, they'll dial through the presets list, pick one, maybe do a quick adjustment, and then they'll get on with it, because that's how it's laid out. Although I have to say that the 8000, that's a whole other thing. The JP 8000 is a whole other thing, and I'm liking that. Whereas with the Cherry stuff, I just feel that I just want to get dug in straight away because of the way they've laid out stuff. So, horses for courses, I'm not going to be buying 11 yet, but I'm really interested in just buying the JP 8000 because I think it's an astonishing synth, and it along with my it's not here actually my Novation Supernova 2. I think the Supernova 2 is just as huge and seminal, and I wish someone would do one of those, boys.
It's funny. Yeah, it's funny because Dan mentioned that he was a little bit peeved that maybe they'd been beaten to the doing a JP 8000 emulation. I belong. I have the Roland Cloud subscription, so I belong to a couple of Facebook groups, and people have been calling out for Roland to put that into the cloud for such a long time. And as soon as I knew this was coming, I knew what the reaction would be, and I wasn't disappointed. And all of these people piled into these Facebook groups saying, Arturia have beaten you guys to it. What the hell's going on? And it does seem odd. I mean, Roland haven't produced a new instrument in their cloud for well over a year, if not more. And I'm just amazed. And I wonder if somebody at Roland Cloud is going, we should have done it, because it's been done so well by Arturia. So there is another instrument in there that I just want to highlight because it is very, very good. You mentioned the Dupe 8000V is going to be available separately for, I think, €149 if you want to buy it on its own. But if
worth every penny.
Yeah, but if you think you buy that and maybe this next one I'm going to show you, you're pretty much the way. If you've already got some Arturia stuff, you're pretty much the way to getting the whole package. But this, I thought, was again an incredibly good and interesting addition. It's a brand new instrument from Arturia. It's called Pure Lo-Fi. Now, it does seem to be quite, the thing these days to have something lo-fi in your collection. And I don't know if I'm the only one that as soon as I saw this and I looked at the layout, I was kind of thinking, maybe they've been looking at Sonicware, because the shape of the buttons, the keys at the bottom, and the all the kind of the kanji lettering or kanji style lettering. I'm not entirely sure if it's accurate or not. I'm sure Wagyu will tell me in the chat. But it just seemed, this is a little bit inspired, I think. But it's a very nice thing. And what you see here is incredibly good. So you've got these two sound generators, and you can choose from a lo-fi oscillator, a creative sampler, or just a regular instrument. And then you can choose from a whole bunch of samples within each of those. engines, and then manipulate them through. There's noise transients as well, and then there's the filter, and there's a whole wide range of filters that you can choose from. You've got separate amp and filter envelopes, you've got macros, you've got loads of effects, and at the top there you can see this, these floppy disks, which are kind of preset lo-fi settings, and so you can choose a floppy disk and then use the amount knob to control the various macros within that particular kind of sonic preset. It's a lovely thing, and it's one of those new instruments that you can just sit down and just start playing and almost just lose track of time, because the sounds it's making and the detail in there is very good. Sorry, Andy.
You see, having said it's not for me, they bring out this, and also of course Yangtze, augmented Yangtze. We'll go into that one another time. This actually does remind me very much of the early days of sampling with the S900 and that kind of thing, where you just grab some vinyl, put it on, grab something off of it, take things off the radio, walk around with your Walkman getting really crappy, hissy recordings. And those actually they were representative of the time, and they still evoke a certain something. So having something in this, like this, in an instrument where you can play around with that actually is quite an interesting and lovely thing. And I may be doing one of my famous reverses on this.
Well, I would encourage you to do so, because the stuff in here is just great. It really is. It's very nice. Unfortunately, they haven't. I was a little bit. The one thing that's perturbed me about this slightly is they brought out a new firmware for this thing, the Astrolab, which is essentially analog lab in a keyboard. That works very well, with this kind of software hardware integration. They brought out an update to this about 10 days ago, and yet these new instruments are still not supported in here. And I would have thought maybe they'd have just put that in there so that when these came out, they would be properly supported in it. And I know it will come, but it would have been nice to have had it from day one, which is a shame. Similarly, with the Keylab 3s, which of course are the ideal partner for a lot of Arturia's instruments. The Keylab 3s, whilst they will obviously work with all of this stuff, they don't have the lovely graphics yet. So I guess they're going to have to do an update to the firmware within the Keylabs. But they work just the same. You just don't get the pretty pictures, which is a shame. But anyway.
They've actually, the one thing they have done is a really good job redesigning a lot of the interfaces.
Yeah, the augmented really stuff is brilliant. As you say, with Yangtze, you can sit here. Somebody once told me, if you just play all the black notes, you'll sound okay. And with that whole kind of, is it the pentatonic scale? You can just go with the black keys, and you put that Yangtze in there. It doesn't matter what patch you pick, you sound amazing. And I love an instrument that makes me sound a million times better than I actually am. So there you go. But that is Arturia's V Collection 11. It is out now. The new instruments are available as individual instruments as well. But by the time you pick up one or two, you might as well just bought the whole shebang. And if you already own Arturia software or hardware, go to your Arturia page, log into your account, and you'll get your own personal special offer with some decent discounts in there. And so if you are struggling to afford the big one, there is the intro version as well, which is a nice way in, and you get some decent instruments in there too. So that is that. Whilst we're still on a bit of an Arturia tip, there is a tenuous link here. This video came up on my feed a week or so ago, and I was intrigued because I'd never seen a keyboard quite like this. And this gentleman has attached one to a Polybrute 12. And I'm going to play you the video. I'm going to just turn the screen black for a second because it's one of these little shorts videos, so it's vertical and it just looks odd when we have everybody on the screen. But just have a little listen to this. Not so much necessarily for the sound that's coming from his instruments, but how he's interacting with them. So let me just bring this up here. I'm just going to turn the screen off and then play the video. So there you go. That is a gentleman who goes by the name of Rico Raven, and he has a website, and his website is called the Yanko Project, and Yanko being the name of this isomorphic keyboard. So he's well into this, and he's got some great videos telling you why it works, how it works, and if you look closely, you'll see that these key extensions, which are kind of stepped and angled, they match the chromatic keyboard layout. So you have 2 black notes, 3 black notes, and so on and so forth. But you've got these different steps, and what it does, it means that you can play inversions and forms of the chords in a very uniform and easy way. So, for example, he mentions about the thumb being able to play a note that's without having to stretch for it, and you can form a chord in a certain way on this, and then just move that chord, your finger configuration, shall we say, and you'll be playing up in the same scale, but just by keeping that shape of your fingers rather than having to learn, the different shapes. It's a fascinating thing, and he's made lots of these keyboards in different forms, these isomorphic keyboards. And he goes into lots of great detail. I just find it fascinating. I'm not entirely sure I'd get on with one, and I certainly wouldn't be gluing these keys to my Polybrute 12, given that it's already in the repair shop for a broken key anyway. But has anybody ever played a Yanko keyboard? Is this something, Mal? I mean, you're quite a storied gentleman in the world of synthesizers and keyboards. Ever come across one of these?
I've on the iPad, I've played one.
Oh, okay.
But not in real life.
Right. So what's the experience like on an iPad?
Well, it kind of gives you the same sort of fret positioning that a guitarist would have, but on the piano. So you can basically move your finger shapes.
Yeah.
And you're playing the same chords. And because the way the structure of the key is, you can basically play with in a much shorter range. So you don't have to extend your fingers if you want to get an octave.
Yeah, that's what he was kind of saying, is that you can play these things easier. You can achieve the results a lot easier with those kind of things. Ever thought of designing a soft synth with a Yanko style keyboard, Dan?
Yeah, Mel, have you?
Yeah, there you go. There's your next challenge.
The hardest thing I have to do on our keyboards is the keyboard. So,
wow.
Because when you model this stuff in 3D, every note has to go up and down. So every note is its own 3D model.
Yeah, of course. So shadows are going to be slightly different, aren't they?
Can you imagine this?
Wow. I think he wants to do it, Dan. I think you should make him do it.
I saw that video earlier in the week, and it's very, very cool, and I have no idea what's going on. I mean, it looks like a keyboard that grew tentacles.
I know, right?
Is trying to attack you. I'm just such a traditional keyboard player, and it gives me the same feeling as when I see a button accordion, and I just have no idea what anything does. But boy, it sure looks cool.
Yeah, and it was a nice tune as well. I enjoyed what I was hearing. I also would be interested to know, particularly with his modification on the Polybrute 12, and given that has its own unique keyboard mechanism of the full touch mechanism, how that translates by using these keys. Does it? I mean, it must. I'm sure you can still get the full touch effect by using these keys. It's just a case of where you're placing your fingers. But I'd like to learn more.
The problem with that is that you can play the same key in multiple positions.
Yeah.
So you have to be a little bit careful, because the key can already be down and you can play that note again.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. Be interesting. Yeah. Maybe we'll see if we can reach out to him and get him on the show.
So it's not got 2 different keyboards, each of which has different tuning, or is an octave apart or anything like that. It's just that the way it's designed physically means you're not having to do that. You can do that, which is a more natural. The thumb tends to fall shorter. Yeah. So that's what it's designed to do. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, essentially.
It doesn't change the chromatic style of a regular keyboard.
Yeah. That's good stuff. I just thought it was very interesting, because I've never really seen one like that. I've seen those isomorphic keyboards that that replicate like an accordion's. Is it the left hand that does the buttons or the right? I can never remember. And I remember the Korg Karma. There was a modification, not an official one anyway, but there was a modification for a Korg Karma, and also the Korg Prophecy became very popular in the Middle East and in Asia as well. And they modified it because a lot of the instruments out there used that style of keyboard, and so somebody very cleverly, just ripped the regular keys out and put this buttoned keyboard in, and it just looked really weird. But when they were playing it with those modelled flutes and wind instruments, it sounded incredible.
I know someone that would love this though, because he's very keen on lots of alternative weird keyboard things. Kent,
No.
you love it. I know.
No,
I know.
Excuse me. I used to go to bed at night, right? With what you do is you tie two elastic bands together, right? And you put one round your thumb, round your elbow, and across your little finger, and go to sleep with it, right? So I
So
can
you
get
stretch your fingers.
16 notes on a span.
Wow.
17 on a really, really good day. When it comes to doing inversions of chords, I like to do the inversion of the chord and not have... Because I'll be looking at that and going, so which key do I push to get the inversion of the chord I'm playing? I'm looking at it going...
It might be easier than you think. I don't know.
It might be, but there's still this whole thing of gluing bits of plastic onto your keyboard.
There is that.
Ugh.
His main one is where he's taken, I think it's a Native Instruments Complete controller, and he's done it on there. I thought it was very brave to stick it on a $3,500 Polybrute 12, but it looks interesting.
And even more so putting it on an MX or putting it on a CS80. No, sorry, no.
And I imagine the transportation of these things is going to be quite difficult as well, because you can't.
If there was a way of doing it into some sort of framework where you attach it, you then clamp it to the keyboard, and you can take it off at any time you want. Especially if you want to go, no, I don't like this, and take it off again.
You can yank it off.
Yes.
Easy.
Not for the first time.
No. That deserves a... He's in all week. But there you go. That's Rinko Raven. The website is the yankoproject.com. That's Yanko spelled Janko. And you can learn more. He's got videos on YouTube. You can buy the keyboard now. He sells them in his shop. I'll be actually interested to see how much the complete control with the Yanko keyboard is. €863. Ships within 7 days. So if you really want to go for it, there you go. You can buy one yourself.
I mean, presumably a controller keyboard that had that would be a better bet.
Well, that's what he's done, I think, with with the complete control. He's taken the 61 key one and then just attached the keys and sells it as a complete unit.
All right, okay.
So I think that's what it is. Yeah, interesting stuff. Interesting stuff indeed. Right, what else have we got in terms of the news? Yes, we do need to mention this. Our friends, great friends at Bukes, have just announced and started patchandtweak.com, the club, with an enhanced set of features. So basically, for a monthly or annual subscription, you can get access to all of those Bukes titles. So that's Push, Turn, Move, Pedal Crush, Patch and Tweak with Moog, Patch and Tweak with Korg, Synth Gems 1, and Inspire the Music. All of those can be had as ebooks. They can be read online. They can be searched, annotated, bookmarked. So it makes for a really, really, really useful resource. And coming up in the future, there will be more and more articles. There will be interviews and all of this stuff, as you can see here. There's lots and lots to come. This is literally just kicked off. And if you want to get into this, now is the time, because there is, I believe, I don't know if it's still going, there certainly was a discount if you sign up now, and you get it for your first year at 50% off. I think I went for the top one, which is $9.99. but I'm getting it for €4.99 or €5 a month, and that gets you access to all of this stuff. There'll be interviews, articles, podcasts will be coming soon, bonus book content, and short documentaries will be featured on here. So it will always be like an extension of the wonderful books that these guys make, and they do make wonderful books, we all know. Patching tutorials, introductory video lessons, patching tips, and of course the access to the books. I noticed that the Minimo book isn't in that list. I'm guessing that might be for contractual reasons. I don't know. Mike's in the chat. He might be able to enlighten us, but maybe one day that will join. But I remember speaking to Kim about this probably maybe a year or two ago, when he said, one of the things I want to do is this. And I said, that's a brilliant idea. What a way to extend what is already a fantastic resource. So listen, I know some people don't like subscriptions, but this is a really great way to enhance, that kind of Bukes experience and support a company that make wonderful, wonderful literature. Any thoughts on this, gentlemen? Anybody, hands up, who's a Bukes fan?
Oh.
I think we all, yes, unmistakably so. Mike's saying the Minimo book is too new. Oh, so wrong quote. There we go. There it is. Minimo book is too new. So I'm assuming it will appear on there at some point. And I know that Kim wants to kind of put stuff in the book and say, go to here to sort of continue your journey. Anyone tempted to subscribe to this?
I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lovely resource. I like this. Yeah. This is my sort of thing.
I love those books. I own just about every one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure an ebook would be great, but if there's ever a book that you want to hold in your hand and look at the pictures and put your face up close to it, and those are the books. They're worth every penny.
Yeah. But I completely agree. The books are amazing. They're so well made, and they're so, from not just the physical construction, but the content as well. But I love the fact that I can now I'm subscribed to this. I've got all of those books on my iPhone, and wherever I go, if I need to find out some information, and Mr. Metley, I need to have a word with you about some of the information that is in Synth Gens 1. I think you know what I'm talking about. But I can have access to that information in my phone, and it's all there with all the pictures and everything. So it's a great thing. It's a lovely thing.
I think for me, I love the books. I like you guys. I love the physicality of the books. I've got 2 libraries in the house because it's a thing. But also, I think the idea that with this, there is all this additional content. There's these interviews, there's video, there's content which didn't make it into the books, photographs, stories, and there's all sorts of stuff happening in the background, with new things, new tweaks, whatever. For me, it's worth it for that. More importantly, it is providing, as Robbie said, a lifeline, or it provides some revenue to keep Bukes going, which I think they're a resource that we need in the world, as it were. And I want to support them, if for no other reason, just for that. But the additional resources are really good.
Yeah, Kim's been on the show at least a couple of times. Mike's been on the show more times than I care to remember. And whenever we talk about Bukes, the care, the attention to detail, the time and effort spent on producing these things is enormous, and therefore incurs costs. And one of the things that keeps coming up is the cost of producing these things, which is why they do, for some of their publications, Kickstarter campaigns. It just gives them that little bit of a safety net. This is like supporting ProSynth Network on the merchandise store. Yeah. It gets them a little bit of income that maybe alleviates that stress and gives them a little bit of backing, but also delivers to you something that's really worthwhile and very, very useful. So
they should do some merch. They should do some merch on here as well. They really should.
I'll have words. I'll be seeing Kim next. Well, in 10 days, and Mike, of course. I'll be battering them. Do some merch. Right. Okay. Before we go back to our guests for a last little bit of a roundup, I have been told, and didn't need much telling, to give this lot a shout out. This is Waves in the Park. So if you are in the UK and you're somewhere near the Bradford area, you might remember last year a bunch of our fellow musicians and community members all congregated under that lovely stand that you see there. What do they call those things again? I can't remember now.
Bandstand.
Bandstands. Yeah, there you go. It was a simple word and I couldn't remember it. But it's called Waves in the Park, and this is Waves in the Park 2.0. And it's an all-day electronic music festival in Roberts Park, Saltaire, and it's 11:30 till 5 p.m. tomorrow. Hopefully the weather will be okay. You'll have all sorts of music there, as you can see. AD Vision is in the chat, I believe, as well. Andy and Grace are going to be there. That's why Andy's not around today, because he's doing that. Brawny, Matthew Harper, Jimi Andrix, Steve Hardacre, MHO, Gnome Foam, M Throbject. I'm saying these names. Yeah. So there's all sorts of stuff going on. But please do, if you in the area, go and support them. A ticket. Let's see. I don't know how much. It's not. Nothing's happening. I can't click it. Nothing's working. I don't know how much tickets are, but go and have a look. So we AD Vision. If you're still in the chat, can you remind us if there is a ticket price, or do you just rock up? I don't know. Is that why I can't? Is that why I can't get any ticket information? Because it's a free. Oh, it is. There you go. It's free. Doesn't cost you anything. So get to Bradford. Go and watch some electronic music and make some new friends. They are wonderful people, all of them. Right, so that is that. We've done everything that was on my list, I believe. So back to our wonderful, wonderful guests. I'm not going to ask you, because I know every time I always get the same answer. I'm not going to bother asking you what's coming next. But we know that it's going to be good. Last few words on Yellowjacket. We mentioned the arpeggiator, and Dan, you wax lyrical about Mal's achievement on this. So Mal, I'm going to throw it over to you now. Tell us your thoughts behind the arpeggiator, or what makes it, in Dan's opinion, one of the best things that has ever appeared on a Cherry Audio synth. Pressure's on.
Well, it just, to me, it just adds a variation to the theme. It's really small little incremental changes can add to a lot. And the idea I was thinking about was, putting this into a DAW. So on its own, something like the humanized feature doesn't actually do very much, because you can't, unless you've got something that's rigid against it, you can't really hear the human effect. I also wanted to have a word in there that was spelled in a British word, so that was the reason why it's called humanize and not feel or groove or something.
Yeah.
So when you put it into a DAW and you've got a beat going, you can feel it. The idea is just to keep augmenting these things as as we go along, and that's really what it is. It's not.
By the way, Mal, it works really well. It works really, really well as a metronome.
Right.
Because it's moving around just that little bit. It actually works really, really well to just put a bit of feel into something. I love it for that, for nothing else.
The other thing about this instrument, which I find, with the Osmos, which is really hard to, when you're playing the Osmos, it's hard to sort of learn how to play it. But if you play the Yellowjacket with the Osmos, you can see visually,
Yeah.
So it's almost like a Poly AT trainer. So all these little things add to the feature set.
Yeah. Dan, you wax lyrical about this. What impressed you most about this feature on this synth?
Oh, it's just, we have lots of synthesizers with arpeggiators, but there's some really cool stuff on here. There's a swing control, which is cool. There's the humanized feature, which is cool. There's the chance control, which is cool. But the thing is, all of them can be turned on simultaneously. And this is a great example of, Mal designed this and he showed it to me and he said, here's some features that would be cool. And then I spent days trying to figure out how I would build a clock to clock this arpeggiator that could trigger early, late, be swung, and drop notes, sometimes not trigger at all without ever losing any notes. And it was, I think, 2 or 3 days until I woke up and went, oh, I know how to do that. And then I programmed it and it worked. And it's a great feel. All those knobs add so much to it. I love turning them up and just it's all very, very musical. But if you turn on your metronome while you're holding down a chord, and you turn those humanize knobs, and you listen to where the notes fall, and it's not rigid on the click track, it's a subtle thing, but it's really cool. It makes it sound really cool. They're just great ideas, and I love what Mal has brought to this project. You know, he put his own stamp on it, and it's a sign of, I think, great things to come in future Cherry Audio products.
Very well said. Couldn't agree more. Somebody actually pointed out, and I did notice this the other day, and then I stored it in my head and said, I will mention this, but then I've forgotten about it. But Gert Bors in the chat says, ebooks about ebooks and Cherry Audio. Check out Making Ambient Music with Cherry Audio Synths and Effects, which is this wonderful book that you see here. I did just post the link in the chat. Thank you, Robert, ever present in the background there, helping us out. Making Ambient Music with Cherry Audio Synths and Effects is available now as a book. It costs $28.50 in US dollars. It's 183 pages, and there it is. It's a wonderful thing. Gives you lots and lots of information, and there you go. As you can see in the contents, you know, if you're into making ambient music, techno music, or all of the ambient styles, there's a lot of stuff. There's some video footage there. So yeah, it's great to see, and that's all using Cherry Audio Synths. So well done, Rolf, for creating that.
That's cool.
Very good indeed.
That's very cool.
Another way to extend your overall experience with Cherry Audio Synths. Best comment in the show today has to go to Rosgray 801. Oh, Yangtze, beautiful river full of fish.
A river full of fish.
Fish.
What was that? They got, didn't they? Was it English
what
First
is it
Division
that makes
goalkeepers?
British goalkeepers come up with such poetry and all that sort of thing. Isn't it? Yeah.
I'm suddenly aware that I'm surrounded by British people. And
It's Python. We have to.
Yeah.
We love a Python quote. Thank you, there, Ros Gray. By the way, Ros Gray, one of the creators of one of our best inspirations. Talking of which, I haven't plugged this, and we are slightly bereft of Synthspiration videos. So listen, everyone, if you're not aware, we started this thing up beginning of the year, I think it was, and I only thought we might get one or two, but we've had nearly 20 so far, and we want to keep this going. And we also would love some of our guests, Dan, Mal, to maybe do one of theirs. And all you've got to do is just create a short video. It doesn't have to be, a feature piece, but if you want to go a little bit longer, that's fine too, because it gives us a chance to take a break and go to the loo during the show. But you can tell us about the music that inspired you to make music with synthesizers and electronic equipment. And all you've got to do is this. We want to know what music inspired you to make music with synthesizers. Be it an album, single, or an entire artist's body of work, we want you to tell us why it inspired you, and given that we're a synth show, which instruments used on that album really made an impact. All you need to do is film yourself talking about your synthspiration for a few minutes, and we'll feature it on the show and discuss it. Send your video clips along with your name or handle to prosynthnetwork@gmail.com using a file sharing service like WeTransfer, and you could feature on a ProSynth Network live show soon. It's true, you can. That's all you got to do is just make a little video. It doesn't have to be fancy. Some of the ones we've had, though, have been utterly brilliant. And if you want to see them all in isolation, become a Patreon subscriber or a YouTube channel member. Yeah. And you can get all of those isolated, or you can just wade through the shows and see if you can find them there. But please, we are slightly low on our synth. Well, we're empty. The tank is empty, so we need some synthspiration videos from our audience. And we don't want to sort of beat you over the head about it, but just send some videos in.
Yeah, get it done.
I know that I need to do one. I know, Andrew, you've done one, but you promised some
I've done
more,
one.
So.
I've got 6 more. I did a couple more, but I had problems with sync for some reason. I've sorted that out now, so I'm going to do the rest of them.
And Mr. Spong, you need to do one as well.
Oh.
Yes. Come on, put your finger out. Sort it out. Sort it out.
Yes, mother.
Indeed. And whilst we're on the subject of promoting things, next week's guest is very special. Not to say that this week's guests aren't, but this is a musician that I was introduced to not that long ago by Michelle Mokusa. And she said, you've got to get this guy on because what he does is amazing. And we have got Matteo David Gagnon of Flor Laurentien. As you can see there, he's got mini moogs and other bits of gear, but he also plays with a string quartet. And it's an amazing, captivating, entrancing sound that this guy makes. He's from Montreal, and we're going to have him on the show next week. Do not miss this, and go check out some of their music before the show because it is just magical stuff. So please do come along for that, and that'll be the last show before Super Booth. So things will we'll hand the reins over while I'm away, and then we'll be back with all of the news from Super Booth mid-May. Did you want to say something? Did you want to say something? Or
there was. Yeah, I know there was. It just occurred to me. So earlier we were talking about the Yellowjacket and the enhanced oscillator, and it tickled something in my brain. I've just remembered it. The idea of an LFO running in the background, just doing the pulse width thing. That's something I've got. I've got a synth called the Original Sin, DS Tech Original Sin. There are very few of them made, but that has 16 separate waveforms or 16 separate pulse widths, each of which uses a different LFO speed to change the pulse width modulation. And it has those on all of the 3 oscillators it's got. And that's why I like the enhancing. I just suddenly remembered that's where it was I picked that up from. Great sound. Love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Nick Harris says someone needs to do a voice act called Full Yellowjacket.
I love that.
That's good. Somebody do that. Talking of voice packs for the Yellowjacket, don't forget James Dyson already did one, as he does day one release through Cherry Audio. It's called Hive Mind. It's $9.99 US, and you can get that from the Cherry Audio store. It's 100 extra sounds, and James does a lot of sound design for Cherry Audio. He's very, very good. I often feature him in a column that I do over at Gear News. And do not think these are kind of cast-offs from his work doing the main body of sounds. These are just as good, if not maybe better, than some of the factory patches. So there's some really good stuff in there. So if you've picked up Yellowjacket, go and get Hive Mind as well.
The other thing is Yellowjacket, I've got to tell you, works stupidly well with the PS3300 and the Chroma. Just the 3 of them together. Oh my lord!
Someone was saying the CR78 drum machine really complements it too.
Yeah,
I
it does.
can see that. That whole late 70s vibe.
Shetty era.
Really well.
Yeah. Cool stuff. Well, we've got a few minutes to go. Has anybody else got any questions they want to ask our guests before we send them on their way to design more synths? I've got 2 in the basket, so we've got to keep them going.
Yeah, when will your synthspirations be coming?
Yes, inspiration. We want inspiration.
I'll be doing one. I know exactly what I want to do and what I want to talk about, and I meant to do it when you first introduced this segment, and I've been busy, but you jolted me into it, and I will do it.
We will. Come on. Nick says, please do the Voyetra, as he says every show. He was asking if you've got one there in the studio, but I've been looking. I couldn't see anything there. It's a lovely thing.
No, I don't suppose you would see it. Although you might see the controller keyboard for it right there. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Look at that.
Gosh.
Oh, we can get excited now. Please do Andromeda. I don't know. Yeah, that would be an interesting one.
That'd be an interesting one for sure.
Yeah, and then when it crashes, that's it. You have to throw it away.
Yeah, if it's authentic, it's got to become a doorstop at some point.
I mean, I used to have 3 Andromedas.
Wow.
Yeah.
What, because they were unreliable or because you liked them?
No,
so
because
much?
I used to love them. Yeah,
Right.
I used to love them.
Yeah, they are a pretty special instrument. Although I don't think Ken would agree.
I've got one in the garage.
As you know, we don't talk about what's in development.
No, we shan't ask you.
We do have a couple really cool synths in development. We have a couple classics that I think everyone will love. Mm-hmm. We have an original one that we're toying with. We've got some great plans. And unrelated to anything, let me just clear some space on my desk here by moving my iPad out of the way. Yeah. You never know what you'll see from us.
Oh, dude, that was classic. Somebody clip that one.
Nobody saw that. You're right.
Very, very good. Very good. Gentlemen, look, it's been a real pleasure, as it always is. And it's been a special one because it's the first of many, we hope, with Mal. It's great to finally sort of be able to talk to you in person, not just through mutual friends and stuff. Because didn't we sort of meet through math?
Yeah, through math.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking of which, sorry, I know I'm just being... Math and Tara, who are together, I Speak Machine, have just released a brand new single, and it's I Speak Machine featuring the one and only Gary Newman, and it is incredible. It's so good. I did post links around to it. Go and check out I Speak Machine, their brand new single with Gary Newman. He's in the video and everything. It's really good. But yeah, just get out of the way. Sorry. So M's.
I'll answer
Mal.
to anything. Don't worry.
Yeah. Mal, listen, it was really great to get you on the show.
Thanks-
finally,
thanks for
you've been
having
doing
me.
some. No, you've done some great work already. This is a great way to get your sort of your full badge, shall we
Right.
say? It is a brilliant thing, and I think for most of us over here in the UK, it's nice to see that little thing in the headlines again. It's such a great little instrument. So congratulations on that. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for buying our merch and for wearing that loud and proud. Dan, as always, it's an absolute honour and pleasure to have you on every time you do that. And no doubt you will be back with us, hopefully, sooner rather than later. Are either of you guys travelling to Superbooth in a week or so? Do you make trips to these
I
things?
think James Terrace will be there. Our head
he will.
sound designer will be there.
Yeah, I've already snagged him for dinner on Thursday, so he's going to be
Excellent.
joining the rest of us. So that'll be good. But you should come over. It's great. It's a really good event.
They don't let me out.
Oh, I see. Or do they let you out, but they might not let you back in these days? 'Cause it's a
Somebody
little-
didn't read the contract fully.
I know. Gentlemen, it is great, and please pass our congratulations and best wishes on to the rest of the Cherry Audio team, because I know it's not just you guys. There's a bunch of people we don't see behind the scenes. People like Robert, who does fantastic job marketing for you. Honestly, I cannot sing that guy's praises highly enough. He looks after us. If he looks after everyone the way he looks after us, then he does a fantastic job. James, and both the Jameses, Dyson and Terrace, all your sound designers. I know it's a big team, and you're all great. You do great work. So thank you. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. And just on a personal note, again, big time congratulations to this guy on his first product that he took from idea all the way through to shipping. It's a lot of responsibility. It's a big job. It's not as easy as it looks, and it's a great synth.
Yeah.
Well
Also,
done.
congrats on the video. I thought the video was really good. I know. Is it you and James Terrace? worked on
I
that?
do that stuff in my sleep.
Oh, listen to him.
There you go.
No, but it was very good. I like that. So yeah, well done on that. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Mal, Andrew, and Kent. Busy weekends coming up, or you're going to kick back and relax?
Well, hopefully I'm working on the Mustang tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So
If the weather lasts.
lots of noise.
Nice.
Pollution.
Somebody's phone's going. Cool stuff.
Upsetting
Someone's
neighbours.
calling.
Ah!
Mike Reckley.
Metley.
Yeah.
Get out of here. I've got to be nice to him until he's bought me dinner. Andrew, you got anything lined up over the weekend?
Well, I'm just hoping to be able to get this bikini let out a little, because it doesn't quite fit. It's a bit.
I
It's
told
a
you to
bit-
go for the size up from that one.
Always go one size.
Do you think small was a
You're only
little
fooling
optimistic?
yourself. You're only fooling yourself. I told
Oh,
you.
there is that. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
just
I'm
don't-
playing.
yeah.
I've got lots
You're
of. I've untied myself, so I'm going to be using Yellowjacket and Chrome. You're going to get a whole swathe of Yellowjacket presets just
Nice.
to have, or we're going to put them up on Patreon or something.
Fantastic.
Cool.
It's
So glad
good.
you like it.
No, I
Nice
really
one.
do.
Good stuff. So thank you everyone for joining us. Don't forget we are here every Friday. We don't miss one yet. Anyway, touch wood. We'll be back here, same time, same place next week with Matteo from Flor Lorencien. Really looking forward to that one. It's very unique, but also very, very cool. Go and check them out online as well. And we'll be back with them next week. The Cherry Audio guys will be back next time they put something out, we hope. And we'll be chatting to them again soon. Don't forget, there's also lots of other people doing some great stuff on YouTube. So you got Andy Synchrotron at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning with his 2-hour drone session, which is always a great way to start your Saturday mornings. Yeah. Certainly if you are here in the UK. And, of course, you can catch up in the US. Who else have we got? We've got Ramsey at 2 p.m. tomorrow with his Synth Geekery show. We've got Symptoms of Reality that broadcast every day. We've got Synth Samurai and the Synth Renegades doing their stuff every few days. And we've also got Jamie from Geosynths, who's doing his Sunday shows again. I think he's doing film composing and TV composing, or media composing this week. He's got 3 guests in that are all involved in that realm. So there's that. There's Jason Jervis doing jamming in Gin Jams with Jackson at 10 p.m. on Sunday.
A lot of pussy action.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll be doing that in his back garden again, but it's always good. Yes, Robin, Molten Modular, our friend Robin, who's behind Synth East, he's done a really great hour-long video on the Pure Lo-Fi from the V collection. It's really good. So don't forget to check out all of these people. We love them, they love us. We try and support them and big them all up. Go and give them a subscribe, and if you liked what you saw today, give us a subscribe and a thumbs up, and we will see you same time, same place next week. Thank you all for watching. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.